show we try to get things right the second time. In today's episode, we're going to be going over our very first Duskborn draft. As you can see here, this was a 3-0. Happy to see that. Early on, before we had an opportunity to actually play with the cards, my original thought was that things with enchantments are going to be obviously very good. So your Eries are going to be very good. Delirium is going to be very easy to achieve. And so we're going to go ahead and see how that plays out throughout the format. As you can see here, we're going to be starting off with a red-green card in our very first pack. So we'll go ahead and dive into it now. Taking a look at Pack 1, Pick 1, there's a couple of really big things that I can see here. Obviously, we've got a red, green, gold card, so early on the format, I'm usually going to gravitate to those to see how they play out. Conductive Machete, I think, plays out pretty well. A 4-mana 4/3 looks good, but then that can also flip up on its own. Equip 4 is a bit much, but later on in the game, if you got nothing else to do, if this turns into one of those formats, that's fine. Fear of Imposters, I originally looked at and thinking it was really bad. However, the more I've seen it, the more I play with it, I think this card is actually fine, if not really good. It also is an instant speed Eerie enabler, which can be really powerful on its own. And then Glimmer Seeker, this seems like an incredible survivor. You either get to continue to draw cards, or you make a 1/1 and then draw cards the next turn. Out of the commons, I do like the idea of Turn Inside Out. Bear Trap is fine, but certainly not first pickable. This room, whenever you unlock, get a 1/1 and then put a 1/1 counter on 2 creatures, seems really good. And then Winter's Intervention is good, but it's not as good as Scorching Dragonfire. So, there's lots of good removal in black. This one seems fine to do there. So, we took the Beastie Beatdown. One thing we should talk about is this cursed recording. I was a little apprehensive on it right away. I figured if this wheels, then we'll probably take it and play with it, but I don't want to end up first picking this thing because even though it's extremely powerful, I don't think this is something you really have to build around. You're going to innately have some kill spells. You're going to innately have some instants and sorceries, and so if you see this going around mid to late, I'd likely pick it up. Took the Beastie Beatdown because if you have the Delirium, 2 mana removal spell, put 2 1/1 counters on something is, just utterly incredible. This is the best rate we've ever seen for this thing if you have Delirium. If you don't have Delirium, it's fine. The floor is pretty high on this one. So we took it just to try and check it out and see what happens if we go down the red-green route, assuming it's open. Pack 1, Pick 2, we see Leyline of the Void at rare. Can't play that, really. I would pick this one up at, 11th, 12th, 13th pick, because in best of 3 draft, there is possibility that this is good, but I wouldn't mess up with it too much. Emerge is great. Drag is great. Even these Cyclers I'm a big fan of. Looking at this one on paper, I think it's great, but the 2/2 body kind of makes it not as good, so I'd be a little apprehensive of Fanatic of the Harrowing. Unnerving Grasp is a phenomenal blue card. I don't think I really want to move into 3 colors right away, but this one is certainly very good. This Sheltered by Ghost is fine, but, I think I'm a little bit less likely to get blown out later. I remove something now, which is really good, but then when they kill it, then they get their thing back, and that doesn't feel very good. So we took this Trial of Agony. This is a very aggressively slanted card, removes 2 blockers, but does kill something else. Essentially, it kind of reads opponent sacrifices a creature between 2, and then the other one can't block. But technically, it's dealing 5 damage, so if that's relevant for whatever else, note that. Pack 1, Pick 3, we saw Pyroclasm. I was a little bit, again, apprehensive if I'm going down this aggressive slant of playing a bunch of creatures and then using some removal spells. Do I want to be Pyroclasming my own board? So I skipped on the Pyroclasm for now. We also see the Scrabbling Skullcrab, which I think is a real, very real threat in this format, particularly if you get 2 or more going. And then outside of that, we saw this Most Valuable Slayer, which a lot of these abilities are whenever this creature attacks. This one just says whenever you attack, so if something else is attacking, it gets that first strike right away when it comes down on the board. So I think this card is actually going to be a really key to both the Survivor deck, the red-green aggro Delirium deck. This card seems very, very good with Death Touch, with Trample, with any sort of thing that makes first strike very good. Pack 1, Pick 4, we see this Fear of Exposure, and I read this card. We've seen this as a white 4/4 in the past. Fear of Exposure seemed like it was something I wanted to sort of force down, but in general, this just didn't play as well as I had hoped. Maybe I need more aggressive creatures, maybe I need more things, but this kind of played more as like a 4 or 5 mana card rather than like a 3 mana card, and that doesn't really make it as powerful. In hindsight, if I could take a second Drag to the Roots and we go down that sort of route, that probably would have been good. Anthropede is fine, but you can pick those up later. Disturbing Mirth is fine. This Lionheart Glimmer, maybe it plays better than I think, but I don't know. This one doesn't seem like it's incredible either. This Gremlin I was really happy with. The Irreverent Gremlin 2/2 Menace is incredible, and if you can do some looting later on, it makes it even better. These Razorkins are pretty filler, but this room also seems very good. 3 mana 2/2, but then like the double strike later in the game powers things up. If we really want to speculate, we could also take this Say Its Name, but I'm pretty low on those for at least a little while. Pack 1, pick 6. We do see a Bleeding Woods, which is good. Turn Inside Out, which I'm happy to see. Also, an Overgrown that I think is going to be very key in a lot of decks. I don't know if it's necessarily this aggressive one, but Glassworks plays well. It's 3 mana 4 to a creature that opponent controls, and then at end step, it deals the damage if you unlock the second half of the room. I even had somebody else do the Shattered Yard first and then eventually do the 4 damage later, so that also felt pretty good for them. I don't think there's as much enchantment removal out there that people might think, and so therefore, once the Glassworks hit the battlefield, you don't really want to be spending another card to remove the Shattered Yard. Infernal Phantom seems like it's very good. Not really in this deck quite yet, but we do have a couple of things going on. This 4 mana 2/3 turns into a 4/3 the first time in Eerie triggers, and if you can end up trading something off or whatever, it's great. This thing also traded off with a couple of like X4s on its own, even without any triggers. That was good. I also would suggest a Slavering Branch Snapper here. Notably, in hindsight, we're also seeing a lot of decent white cards. Not overly huge on the Unsettling Twins, but this Possessed Goat actually looks like a pretty incredible 1-drop, and then Lionheart Glimmer is fine once we're getting to pack 1, pick 7. We do pick a Threats around every corner, mainly because I want to pick it here and just test it out early. I could totally see if this one's not great or if it needs to be in the blue-green archetype or whatever, but it is an enchantment, which is important. Seeing a second Skull Crab kind of also makes me wish we went down that route. And then the last thing I want to talk about is Manifest Dread. This card I looked at originally and was like, it's just too simple. It's not good enough, but I think it's going to be a key role player. It's a 2 mana 2/2. It's a 2 mana 2/2. Just think about that. It's a 2 mana 2/2, which is perfectly fine. And if it ever gets better, that's great. If put something in your yard, if you need a Delirium Enabler, this is a sorcery. Plus, it also would pitch either a land or maybe an enchantment creature, an artifact creature, something like that. It really gets you towards Delirium quickly. We saw another Turn Inside Out, and so we finally picked one of those up. I think this is a very reasonable trick. +3/+0 is big game for 1 mana. It's essentially Lightning Bolt if you have an untapped creature, but also one of the things, do note, the creature does not get the when this dies manifested. If you target one of your opponent's creatures and it were to die this turn via Pyroclasm or whatever else, you still get the Manifest Dread off of that. So do know that this can target opponent's creatures if it were to die anyway. Pack 1, pick 10. We took this Lakeside Shack because I wasn't really thrilled with too much of these other cards, and I thought that this one might speculate if we ended up splashing blue for any reason. Found Footage was fine. I didn't want a second Lakeside Shack. This one I thought would be fine for Delirium. We didn't end up playing, and if we have to play it, we will, but not thrilled with that one. Do see a Disturbing Mirth, but I don't think we're going down that route either. Anthropede is a perfectly reasonable card. The reach in it could be important because I don't see a lot of reach in the format. We also see Ripchain Razorkin, also reach, less exciting because it doesn't block as well as it attacks, and another Turn Inside Out. Moving to pack 1, pick 2. I like this Fear of Being Hunted because it is eerie. It also helps Delirium, and then of course it's just a 3 mana 4/2 haste. 4 damage is so much on turn 3. So I was big on Fear of Being Hunted. I think this card is good. Obviously, it trades down with a lot of the Manifest Dreads and other 2-drops, but if you can end up doing things aggressively, this is an excellent follow-up post-Wraths or just on turn 3. I think this card is very strong. I looked at the Swarm Weaver and I thought, do I want to play that? And I said, no, I really want to see what it's like to play Red-Green Delirium Beasts. And I think Patrick Beastie is so important for that Red-Green Delirium Beast. 1, it's an artifact creature, so it never hits the bin. It's 2 things you don't always necessarily have. 2, it ends up milling things on your own every turn, so therefore it turns on Delirium very quickly. 3, it's a 1 mana 3/3. Yes, it doesn't do anything on turn 1. Yes, it probably doesn't do anything on turn 2, but after that, it's like a 1 mana 3/3, which is very incredible if you're going to end up doing any sort of double spelling. Fear of Burning Alive, also very good. Probably pick that up in a little bit. Outside of that, Terramorphic Expanse is very important in Delirium deck because it's a way that you can end up getting a land in the yard without milling it or discarding it. So just using the card as expected gets you a land in there. We did see a Wildfire Wickerfolk, which kind of made me feel a sigh of relief that we actually might be able to put something together here. Happy to see this one. Having the artifacts from the Scarecrow style things and the Beastie style of things, and the enchantments from some of the fears, really thinks that Delirium is, like I said, stupid easy. Very simple. Also want to see the Spine Seeker Centipede. Happy to check that one if we can end up figuring it out. But this Wildfire Wickerfolk as a 4/3 with haste and trample is nuts. See a Scorching Dragonfire. Take a Scorching Dragonfire. I think I need like 4 or 5 of these to pass one. It's going to be really tough, or some bomb. I mean, Scorching Dragonfire is incredible. The Exile Clause is very relevant. 3 damage for 2 mana is just always good. I think it's going to be pretty key in this format to have 4 toughness on your creatures in order to dodge things like Scorching Dragonfire. We see one, we'll take another one. Cathartic Parting, I think, is also another one. The artifact and enchantment removal without having it go into the graveyard for Delirium is big game. I think this is really huge. The key defining factor between these two is that this is an instant and this is a sorcery. If I already had 2 of these, I might really consider this one for either sideboard or main deck purposes, but I think you should really kind of consider Cathartic Parting whenever you see it. Razorkin Horde Collar, without even looking at the rest of the pack, I'm thrilled with this card. 5 mana 4/4, which also gets you a 1/1. With haste, we're talking about haste creatures with this one and that one. Get this thing in here. It's very on game, very on brand. Pack 2, pick 7. We do have this ticket booth again, which I'm a little, fine with. I've got this Ragged Playmate, which can be very good for Delirium purposes. Another artifact is kind of key in this red-green deck. But Fleshbrewer is a 2/2 with Death Touch. I mean, that's incredible. And if you ever happen to end up getting anything else with Death Touch, God forbid, something like this Most Valuable Slayer as first strike to give something else with Death Touch. I mean, this seems really, really good. So I want to have this as one of my premier 2-drops if I'm playing green. It either blocks really well, it attacks really well, it helps out with other attacks. I think it just plays very above rate for 2 mana 2/2. We did pick up a Pyroclasm. I could pick up another Glassworks, but I thought, you know what, there's going to be some decks, even though we're trying to be aggressively slanted, the red-white deck is very much there. There's also lots of little flyers in the blue-black deck, that kind of thing. So we pick up a Pyroclasm. Realistically, if we have, let's say, our Wildfire Wickerfolk, this is a 4/3 if we have it. This is a 3/3 if we have it, doing well. And then we do have a couple of other X2s, but a lot of these other things are 2/3, 2/4, 5/3, 3/4. It just so happens that I'm not that worried about Pyroclasm in my red-green deck so far. We do see another Infernal Phantom. I don't have as many enchantments as I really want to make these things busted, but I think I'm taking it over a Glassworks. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe I want to Manifest Dread. As the format moves on, these other cards might pop up a little bit, but at the start of the format, I'm taking the uncommon to see how it plays more. We do see a second Most Valuable Slayer. I kind of really want my last pick back now because now we're really glutting on 4s, but this card seems great with the Leech and other sort of things. We did end up seeing this Spine Seeker Centipede on the wheel, which is great. Happy to pick this one up. Gets up fixing if we need a little bit of fixing. Otherwise, it's just a 3 mana 3/3 Vigilance in this deck, I think, most of the time. We do see a Friendly Teddy. We didn't end up playing this one, but if you're really hurting for artifact creatures, this one is good. Glimmerlight. I had someone play this against me, and I think it's fine in the Eerie deck because that Glimmer Enchantment creature token does trigger Eerie, but I don't know, man. A 2-mana short sword? Seems a little meh. Planes to pass things up. Pack 3, pick 1. We see a Rip, and even though we haven't really done anything else as far as splashing is concerned, we do have this Spine Seeker Centipede. Rip is incredible, right? When I originally read it, I thought it was reveal X cards where X is power, put a creature or vehicle on there, but it's any number of creatures or vehicles with different power into your hand. So I drew all kinds of cards with this thing. It was super good. This is the 3rd Drag to the Roots we should think about. We also see a 2 mana 2/2 down here and hand that feeds. Otherwise, this pack's not super great for us. So happy to pick up a rare. It was busted. Screaming Nemesis, super incredible mythic. People are talking about this in other constructed formats. Slam this one real fast. Outside of that, we see another Razorkin, a Baseball Bat, Most Valuable Slayer. Even this Cryptid Inspector, probably not for our deck, but it's obviously very good. I just slammed this thing as fast as I could. It was so good in the format. Another Fear of Exposure. I was looking at this Vengeful Possession, and I think I'm a little low on this one. It's one of the better active treasons we see because you also get a loot out of it, but I don't know. Maybe we want active treasons in some things. This plays better in red-black where there's lots of different sacrifice effects for creatures and enchantments, so maybe you just want to keep that there. But Fear of Exposure didn't play as well as I wanted to, but it looked really good on paper, so I picked it up here. Second Pyroclasm ended up in the sideboard, which obviously plays well if we need it, and if we don't, it's not a big deal. At Altonac, the Thrice Called. I don't think we've seen enough say its names in order to get this thing through. And outside of white, black, reanimate sort of things, I don't think you can play too much with this. 7 mana 9/9 is very good, but I don't know. 7 mana is a lot in the deck that we're going through here. We did see a Cathartic Parting here. Happy to pick that one up. Really, really happy to see this one if we need it. We picked up another ticket booth because there's not a whole lot in this pack, and I don't think I need more Anthropedes. Essentially, the deck is done at this point, and so we're just trying to pick up maybe some fixing. We do pick up another Glassworks for a removal spell. Not a whole lot else here. We've got this Smoky Lounge, which we're not going to splash for the Misty Saloon, but maybe I should be, or the Misty Salon, right? Like if I'm playing Glassworks, 2 Glassworks, and you know, our Singleton Blue Source here, plus a Spineseeker Centipede, this Smoky Lounge plays with all the other rooms, and you know, maybe the Misty Salon is easy enough, and it's like a 4/4. You know, so maybe I should have played this one, but I took it and didn't. Hand That Feeds was a filler card in the moment. Probably could have taken Baseball Bat here. I don't think I need the 3rd Slayer. I don't even know if I'm playing Baseball Bat that much, but if we're splashing Rip, we certainly could have taken it. We did pick up a Vengeful Possession. We got a Rampaging Soul Rager, another Soul Rager, and then ended up on the Murky Sewer. Taking a look at the deck, you can see we're very creature heavy. We've got 16 creatures, a couple of extra 4s, more than I wanted. I think this Infernal Phantom probably could have been something else, but all these play well with Pyroclasm mainly. We did end up only playing the 1 turn Inside Out, and we've got a couple removal spells here in the Glassworks, 2 Dragonfires, the Trial, the Beastie, the Pyroclasm, and then of course this Cathartic Parting should we need any artifacts or enchantments that need it. Outside of that, we're just, you know, beats. We've got a Death Toucher that swings in easy, Menace which swings in easy, high rate creatures. We've got these things to really kind of go over the top, some haste threats over here, and in general, just we're beaten down and trying to remove a couple blockers. This deck played very cleanly. There was not a whole lot to really stay in its way. The one thing that really slowed us down, there was a white, blue, black Eerie build where it was full 3 colors, but they had like the 2-mana 2/2 that ends up making a bunch of 1/1s, and we didn't have as much trample as I had wished we probably could have had. So we brought an extra Pyroclasm, and having the second Pyroclasm helped us win that match. But had we not had access to both, I could definitely foresee something like that being some trouble. So let me know what you think. If you missed anything, if I missed anything on the picks, or if you would have drafted or built differently, let me know. If you want to have your deck featured on Run It Back, feel free to send me an email at runitbackmtg@gmail.com, or send me a message in Discord with either the Untapped GG draft logs or the 17 lands draft logs like this one. See you next time. Bye-bye.